The mother who vanished without a trace. Crystal Rogers' case just got even stranger. Before we dive in, kindly hit the subscribe button and let us know where you are watching from in the comment. A mother of 5 doesn't just vanish into thin air. That was the first thing everyone said when the news broke. It wasn't just the words. It was how they said it. Confused, scared, angry, because in Bardstown, Kentucky, people talked. And when Crystal Rogers, 35, vanished on the night of July 3, 2015, the whole town felt it, like a pulse suddenly stopped beating. No screaming, no struggle, no warning, just silence, and the mother of 5 gone. Crystal's day started like most others. She was at home with her children. She'd recently been spending more time with her youngest, Eli, who was just 2 years old. She posted photos on Facebook. Family, smiles, fireworks. It was the 4th of July weekend. People were excited. Barbecues were firing up. Small-town parades filled Main Street. The kind of weekend no one forgets. Especially not this one. Crystal's boyfriend of several years was Brooks Houck, a successful businessman and father to their youngest son. To most people in Bardstown, he seemed calm, quiet. He ran rental properties, took care of his family. But those who knew Crystal said something felt off. On that Friday evening, Crystal left with Brooks. According to him, they went to his family's farm, fed the cows, spent time together. Later, they returned to his house. He claimed Crystal stayed up late playing games on her phone. He said he fell asleep. When he woke up, she was gone. That was his story, and it hasn't changed since. When Crystal's family didn't hear from her the next day, alarms started ringing. She wasn't answering her phone. Her Facebook silent. Her kids hadn't seen her. She never came home. On July 5th, 2 days after she was last seen, something chilling happened. Crystal's maroon Chevy Impala was found. Abandoned. Keys in the ignition. Her purse. Her phone. But no Crystal. The car was parked on the Bluegrass Parkway, not far from mile marker 14. The same road where, years earlier, Bardstown police officer Jason Ellis was ambushed and killed. Another unsolved case. Another mystery. But this wasn't about an officer. This was about a mother. Crystal's family, especially her mother Sherry Ballard, knew something was terribly wrong. She wasn't the kind of woman to run off. She was devoted to her children. She had no enemies. She didn't do drugs. She didn't drink heavily. She didn't live recklessly. The idea that Crystal would just walk away from her kids? Unthinkable. Her father, Tommy Ballard, took charge. He started organizing search teams, driving miles of back roads, checking fields, creeks, barns, anything. Every lead felt urgent, every second precious. They were looking for their daughter. They were also starting to look at Brooks Houck. The way Brooks acted, it didn't sit right with Crystal's family. He didn't seem worried. He didn't help search. He didn't cry. During early interviews, he barely blinked. No emotion, no urgency, just answers that were clean, too clean. Detectives noted it too. They questioned him several times. He stuck to his story. They went to the farm, came back. She stayed up. He went to bed. He said she left sometime overnight. But why would she leave in the middle of the night, without her phone, without her purse, without her child? None of it made sense. One of the most unsettling details? The last place Crystal was seen, the Houck family farm. It was remote, hundreds of acres, wooded areas, old buildings, perfect place for, well, anything to be hidden. Search teams combed through it. Dogs were brought in, cadaver dogs. They picked up scents in specific spots, but there wasn't enough to act on. No blood, no physical evidence, nothing that screamed, here she was. Only whispers, only doubt. The hardest part? Crystal's youngest son, Eli, 2 years old, still too young to understand what happened. He lived with Brooks. Crystal's family wanted custody. They didn't trust Brooks. Not anymore. Legal battles broke out. Courtrooms became war zones. Accusations flew back and forth. All while Crystal was still missing. And the clock kept ticking. As days turned into weeks, the case gained media attention. National outlets picked it up. People started asking, how does a woman vanish and leave no trace behind? Why hasn't her boyfriend been arrested? A reward was offered. Posters went up. Facebook groups exploded. Hundreds joined online forums trying to crack the mystery. Theories emerged. Was it a domestic dispute? Did someone help cover it up? Or was this something deeper? Bardstown was no stranger to shadows. In the years leading up to Crystal's disappearance, other unsolved deaths occurred in the area. All strange, all violent, all cold. What was going on in this quiet little Kentucky town? As suspicion mounted, so did pressure on the Bardstown Police Department. People wanted answers, but things were getting complicated. One of the detectives working Crystal's case, Nick Houck, was Brooks' brother. Yes, the lead investigator and the prime suspect were family. Conflict of interest? You bet. Nick was pulled from the case after he allegedly warned Brooks not to talk to police. He was later fired, but the damage was done. Trust was shattered. People wondered, how can this case move forward if the very people meant to solve it are connected to the suspect? Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, refused to back down. He made it his mission to find his daughter. He searched every weekend. He organized volunteers. He put up billboards. He knocked on doors. He confronted people. He believed his daughter was dead. He believed Brooks knew more than he said. And he believed someone in Bardstown was hiding the truth. In interviews, Tommy said something dark. They can kill me too, but I won't stop. I'm going to find my daughter. He didn't know how close those words would come to reality. On November 19, 2016, over a year after Crystal vanished, tragedy struck again. Tommy Ballard was out hunting with his 12-year-old grandson, just miles from his home. A shot rang out. Tommy fell to the ground, dead, right there in the woods, right in front of his grandson. Police ruled it a hunting accident, but Crystal's family and the community believed otherwise. Too convenient, too clean, too timely. Now 2 people were gone. First Crystal, now her father, and still no arrests. No closure, no justice. After Tommy's death, the case seemed to stall. Searches became less frequent. Tips slowed down. The media moved on. But the community didn't. People still whispered. They still watched Brooks. They still wondered how a mother of 5 could vanish without a single trace. Without a confession. Without a body. The silence was heavy, unnatural, haunting. Crystal's children were growing up without answers. Her mother, Sherry, was now fighting alone. But the case wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because just when everyone thought things had gone quiet, something unexpected happened. In 2020, the FBI took over the case. They announced it loudly. Over 150 agents arrived in Bardstown. Drones, excavators, dogs, forensic teams. They searched the Houck family farm again. This time more carefully. They collected evidence. What they found was never fully revealed to the public. But whatever it was, it changed everything. The FBI wouldn't take on a cold case unless they believed they could solve it. Something had shifted. New leads. New hope. He said she stayed up late and vanished. But the signs say otherwise. In missing person cases, the last person to see the victim alive is always a suspect. In Crystal Rogers' case, that person was her boyfriend, Brooks Houck, the father of her youngest child, a man who claimed to love her, a man who now stood in the eye of the storm. He wasn't crying, he wasn't searching, he wasn't talking, but people were watching, and what they saw didn't add up. From the outside, Brooks and Crystal looked like a happy couple. They shared a home, a child, a routine, but inside their home, cracks were forming. Friends say Crystal was unhappy. Brooks was distant, cold, controlling. She talked about leaving. She wanted more love, more respect, more freedom, but she stayed for her son. Because walking away from Brooks wouldn't be easy. He had power, money, connections, and as it would soon become clear, he had secrets. On July 8, 2015, 5 days after Crystal disappeared, Brooks sat down with investigators. He looked composed. Too composed. No tears. No panic. No anger. Just a flat, steady voice. "She was playing games on her phone," he said. "I went to bed. When I woke up, she was gone. That was it." According to Brooks, Crystal left sometime during the night. But investigators were already raising eyebrows. Because Crystal's phone, found in her abandoned car, had no outgoing activity that night. No texts. No games. No calls. It was dead silent. Just like Crystal. Here's where things get even stranger. One of the lead detectives on the case was Nick Houck, Brooks' brother. He was a Bardstown police officer with access to everything. On July 9th, Nick called Brooks and warned him, "Don't speak to police anymore." That one call changed everything. The FBI reviewed it. They could hear Nick advising his brother, clearly, to stop cooperating. He told Brooks the police would try to trip him up. He was protecting him. The department found out. Nick was removed from the case. Eventually, he was fired from the force. And the investigation? Tainted. From the very beginning. That same week, Brooks appeared on local news. It was a carefully planned interview. Not spontaneous. Not emotional. He didn't plead for help. He didn't speak to Crystal. He didn't address her family. He defended himself. "I have nothing to hide," he said. "I'm being cooperative." But behind the camera, Crystal's family was furious. They watched his body language, his tone, his casual shrugging. To them, it looked like guilt, or worse, indifference. Sherry Ballard, Crystal's mother, didn't hold back. She told reporters, "If I had a child with someone who disappeared, I'd be out there, day and night, looking for her." Crystal's sister agreed. Brooks isn't acting like someone who's lost the mother of his child. The Ballards started pushing hard. They begged police to investigate Brooks. They asked about the farm. They demanded lie detector tests. And they got them. Brooks took a polygraph. The results? Inconclusive due to deception. Nick, his brother, also took one. Same thing. The examiner said Nick showed deceptive responses. To the public, that was a red flag. To the Ballards, it was fire. But polygraphs aren't admissible in court. They raise suspicion, sure, but they don't prove guilt. Still, they told a story that contradicted the one Brooks was telling. Now, let's talk about the farm. The Houck family farm sits off Pascal Ballard Lane in Nelson County. It stretches hundreds of acres. Dense woods, old barns, hidden corners. Brooks claimed he and Crystal fed cows there the night she disappeared. Investigators believed this was the last known location of Crystal Rogers. That made it critical. Cadaver dogs were brought in. They hit on several areas, but no body was found. No blood, no shovel, no sign of Crystal. At least nothing solid enough to make an arrest. The farm became a symbol of suspicion, of secrets, of silence. And no one could get closer to the truth because it was private property. Owned by the Houcks. They weren't letting anyone back in. Not again. In August 2015, something strange happened. Crystal's mother noticed game cameras had been set up near the family property. Trail cams, facing the Ballard home. Watching them, they weren't theirs. They didn't know who set them up. But someone was watching, maybe warning. Were they being followed? Was someone trying to keep them quiet? They contacted the police. One of the cameras belonged to Brooks Houck. He said it was for security reasons. But to the Ballards, it felt like intimidation. Months passed. Then came a development. Cell phone data analysis. Investigators pulled Brooks' phone records. They looked at pings, location data, movement. One glaring issue, a gap in his timeline. The night Crystal vanished, his phone went dark for several hours. When it came back online, it pinged near the area where Crystal's car was later found. That detail never made the 6 o'clock news. But in private files, detectives were taking notes. Why go dark during the most critical hours? Why show up near the dump site? Too many questions. Not enough answers. Nick Houck was still making headlines. Even after being fired, he defended his brother. He spoke little to media, but privately, insiders said Nick remained loyal. He believed Brooks was innocent, or maybe he just wanted this to go away. Years later, it would be revealed that Nick refused to turn over text messages related to the case. That refusal triggered federal interest. The FBI began to look at both brothers, because this didn't seem like a one-man cover-up. This was starting to look like a conspiracy. In late 2015, the FBI discovered something else. Nick Houck's duty weapon was missing. A Glock. He claimed it was stolen from his car. He reported it months after Crystal vanished. Too late, too vague, too convenient. Investigators believed the missing weapon was suspicious and possibly connected to Crystal's disappearance. Or Tommy Ballard's death, but without the weapon. No way to prove it. Just more shadows, more dead ends. Time passed. Brooks moved on. He went quiet. He kept custody of Eli. He was never charged, never arrested, never brought to court for anything related to Crystal's disappearance. He still owned properties, still worked, still raised his son. But behind closed doors, the investigation never stopped. In 2020, the case shifted from local to federal. That's when the story broke wide open. July 2020, 5 years after Crystal disappeared, the FBI rolled into Bardstown with a vengeance. Over 150 agents, search warrants, dig teams, drones. They weren't there for publicity. They were there because they had something. They searched the Houck family farm again. They pulled new evidence. They brought in forensic anthropologists. They had luminol tests for blood. They mapped the land. The public wasn't told what was found, but insiders hinted it was significant. And that's when people in Bardstown started to whisper again. Something was happening. Everyone in Bardstown had a theory. Some said Crystal was buried on the farm. Others believed her body was moved. Some whispered about law enforcement corruption. Others pointed to drug rings and secrets too dangerous to name. But most agreed on one thing. Brooks Houck knows more than he's saying. And now, with the FBI involved, the pressure was building. Years had passed, but the truth had not died. It was buried, and now it was being dug up. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. There's something wrong in Bardstown. That's what people whispered. Not loudly, not in public, but behind closed doors, in church pews, at grocery store counters, in whispers over morning coffee. Because Bardstown, Kentucky, population 13,000, was hiding something. It wasn't just the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. No, this town had blood on its hands, and a growing list of mysteries no one could explain. This wasn't just a case. It was a pattern. Before Crystal vanished, Bardstown was already scarred. Her case wasn't the first, and tragically, it wouldn't be the last. Let's go back, way back, to where this shadow over Bardstown really began. It was Memorial Day weekend, 2013. Jason Ellis, a 33-year-old Bardstown police officer, was driving home from his shift. He was a father, a husband, a baseball coach, loved in town, respected. He exited the Bluegrass Parkway. Someone had placed tree branches on the off-ramp. He stopped. He got out of his car, walked toward the brush, and that's when he was shot. Planned ambush. Shot multiple times with a 12-gauge shotgun. Killed instantly. No one saw the shooter. No cameras. No witnesses. Just blood on the road. And silence. The murder of a police officer. In small-town Kentucky. Still unsolved. 1 year later, April 22, 2014, just after 8 a.m., a coworker noticed Kathy Netherland, a 48-year-old teacher, hadn't shown up to school. Concerned, they called the police. Officers arrived at her home. Inside, they found Kathy and her 16-year-old daughter Samantha, dead, brutally murdered. Kathy had been shot multiple times. Samantha, beaten to death. A baseball bat was believed to be the weapon. There were no signs of forced entry. No robbery. No motive. Another double homicide. Another family shattered. Another case gone cold. Bardstown was spiraling. and everyone knew it. Fast forward to July 2015. Crystal Rogers missing. Her car abandoned. Her purse and phone still inside. No body, no answers. The town was already on edge. But now, they were afraid. What was happening here? A cop, a teacher, a teenager, a mother of 5, dead, missing, no justice. And then, it got worse. November 2016. Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, was out early in the morning, hunting with his 12-year-old grandson. Walking a field near his home, suddenly a single shot rang out. Tommy collapsed, shot once in the chest, killed instantly, right in front of his grandson. It was ruled a hunting accident. That's what the police said. But Crystal's family didn't buy it. They knew Tommy had been getting closer to answers. He had files. He was tracking suspects. He told his wife he believed he was being followed. Then, just like that, he was gone. Now Crystal and her father were both victims, and still no arrests. For deaths, one disappearance. In just 3 years, people started to notice. Too many tragedies, too close together, too few answers. The cases felt connected even if the police didn't say it. Locals had theories. Some believed there was a network behind the crimes. Others thought certain individuals were being silenced. And some, they believed the truth was too dangerous to say out loud. Because in Bardstown, asking questions came with consequences. By 2017, Bardstown had become a place of shadows. People were afraid to talk, afraid to get involved, afraid to say Brooks Houck's name too loudly. He was still living in town, still raising Eli, still showing up in public. And no one dared confront him. Crystal's family said it felt like the whole town was paralyzed. The police wouldn't act, the town wouldn't speak, and the case went cold again. But not to Sherry Ballard, not to Crystal's siblings, not to the people who still wore red ribbons on their shirts and bumpers. They weren't giving up. In 2018, local officials created a cold case task force, dedicated to Crystal, to Jason, to Kathy and Samantha, to Tommy. But still no breakthroughs. The truth was buried, and everyone could feel it. Then came the change, the shift, the thing no one saw coming. July 2020, 5 years after Crystal disappeared, the FBI took over the case. They didn't just assign a few agents. They sent a task force of over 150 personnel. They set up a command center at the Nelson County Sheriff's Office, brought in digital forensics, flew drones, started re-interviewing witnesses, and, most importantly, began searching the Houck family farm again. This wasn't a courtesy. This was war. The FBI didn't reveal everything, but they confirmed this. They were acting on new evidence. They brought in excavation teams, forensic archaeologists, cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar. They dug deep into Brooks Houck's 300-acre farm. They pulled out bags of potential evidence. They sent those samples to Quantico. They didn't say what was found, but they made one thing clear. This is an active, ongoing federal investigation. For the first time in years, there was hope. Hope that justice might come. Hope that someone would finally pay. The FBI's involvement made headlines. CNN, Dateline, Crime Junkie. Everyone started talking about Crystal again. Facebook groups exploded. TikTok creators posted theories. People across America were asking, what is going on in Bardstown, Kentucky? New witnesses came forward. Old witnesses were re-questioned. The town felt alive again, with tension, fear, and urgency. Brooks, still silent, but that silence was now being pierced by federal agents, by subpoenas, by something stronger than secrets. Truth. Through it all, Crystal's family never stopped fighting. They organized Find Crystal walks, set up billboards across Kentucky, held vigils every July 3rd, spoke at every court hearing. They turned their pain into pressure, and the world watched. In interviews, Sherry Ballard said, "They've taken my daughter, they've taken my husband, but they will not take my voice." She was right. Her voice kept the case alive, kept the town talking, kept the FBI working. Even after years of heartbreak, Bardstown used to be known for bourbon, for small-town charm, for horse farms and tight-knit families. Now, it's known for murder, mystery, disappearance. Tourists still come, but locals carry a weight, a fear, because until Crystal's case is solved, everyone is a suspect, everyone's hiding something, and no one can sleep easy. There's a reason the FBI launched a multi-agency task force. This isn't just about one missing mother. This is about a chain of violent events, a web of silence, and a system that might have protected the wrong people. Every time the agents dig, they find something new, something old, something buried. And every time Crystal's face appears on the news, someone in Bardstown looks over their shoulder. Because deep down, they know, she didn't just vanish, she was taken. As Chapter 3 ends, the picture becomes clearer. Pattern of death, a trail of fear, a town haunted by 5 unsolved tragedies. Jason Ellis, Kathy Netherland, Samantha Netherland, Crystal Rogers, Tommy Ballard. 5 lives, 5 families destroyed, 1 town caught in a fog of secrets. And somewhere in those secrets is the truth, waiting to be uncovered. By force, by faith, by fire. You don't need a body to know someone's gone. You just need the silence they leave behind. Crystal Rogers vanished in July 2015. Her car was found. Her phone was found. Her purse was found. But Crystal? She was never found. And that single fact, her body missing, has become the most chilling part of this story. Because it means someone went to great lengths to erase her. The clock started ticking the moment Crystal vanished. Investigators know the first 48 hours are critical in missing persons cases. But when police arrived at the scene, her car off the Bluegrass Parkway, there was no blood, no struggle, no clothing, no indication of where she went or how. Everything inside her vehicle seemed too neat, like it had been arranged, like someone wanted it to look like she walked away. But she didn't, and her family knew it. Crystal's phone was found in her abandoned car. Investigators pulled the data, call logs, messages, GPS, and that's when the story started to crack. According to Brooks Houck, Crystal stayed up late that night playing games on her phone. He said she was still awake when he went to sleep. But the phone told a different story. There were no signs of activity that night. No outgoing texts. No social media posts. No games. Just silence. After 8:30 p.m., Crystal's phone went dark. For investigators, that was a red flag. Because if Brooks was telling the truth, her phone should have shown signs of life. But it didn't, because she wasn't there to use it. Now flip the script. Let's look at Brooks Houck's phone. When the FBI reviewed his data, they noticed something strange. A gap. For a stretch of time that night, Brooks' phone was either turned off or had no signal. It later pinged in a location disturbingly close to where Crystal's car was dumped. What was he doing there? Why did his signal go dark? And why didn't he mention it? He never had answers. Only the same line. She was there when I went to bed. She was gone when I woke up. But the evidence whispered otherwise. Cadaver dogs are trained to detect the smell of human decomposition, even months after death. So when investigators brought K9 units to the Houck family farm, they weren't just taking a shot in the dark. They were following instincts, and the dogs confirmed them. Multiple hits, specific areas of interest, spots where the dogs reacted, where their behavior changed. Handlers took note. Investigators brought in teams to dig. But the problem? The farm was massive. Over 300 acres. Wooded areas. Deep soil. Old equipment. Abandoned wells. You could hide a lot in that much space. Even a body. In 2020, 5 years after Crystal's disappearance, the FBI made their move. Armed with new intelligence, they launched a full-scale excavation. Drones, backhoes, metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar. This wasn't symbolic. They weren't pretending to search. They were looking for a body, and they focused again on the Houck farm. For days, agents were seen combing the land, digging precise areas, taking soil samples, collecting items of interest. What they found was never publicly confirmed, but whispers from law enforcement sources say biological material was recovered. Enough to keep the case open. Enough to keep the heat on Brooks Houck. But still, no crystal. At one point during the investigation, eyes turned to a pond on the Houck property. The water was murky, deep, cold. There was talk of draining it, bringing in divers, searching for evidence underwater. Why? Because someone close to the investigation said a large object had been moved into the pond around the time Crystal vanished. Concrete blocks? A tarp? A barrel? No one would confirm it, but theories grew. Could her body have been sunk? Could it have been weighted down? If someone wanted her gone forever, a pond in the middle of a private farm would be the perfect place. But to this day, no official dive has recovered a body, and the mystery of that water remains. Shortly after Crystal went missing, a strange call came into the Houck family business. A former employee said someone asked about the rental units Brooks owned, but the caller wasn't looking to rent. They were asking about a specific basement. That basement had been freshly painted. When investigators followed up, they found nothing obvious. But questions lingered. Was something hidden in the walls? Was it a diversion? Why would someone paint a basement right after a person vanishes? It felt like cover-up behavior, like someone hiding a crime. Crystal's family has always believed she was killed on the night of July 3rd, and they believe it happened at the farm. They've said as much publicly. They think Brooks either acted alone or had help. And when it was over, they believe he disposed of her body in a place where no one would ever find it. Whether it was a shallow grave, a well, or something darker, they believe the truth is on that land. But without a body, they can't prove it. That's the tragedy of this case. Because a missing person without remains is a ghost. No body, no arrest. This is where the system gets cruel. You don't need a body to prove murder in the court of law, but you do need evidence. And in this case, most of the physical evidence was circumstantial. Suspicious phone data, inconsistent alibis, lies from family members, dogs hitting on possible locations. But no remains, no blood, no weapon, no forensic smoking gun. That's why Brooks Houck walked free. Because without a body, prosecutors worried. Will the jury believe she's even dead? The absence of Crystal wasn't enough. They needed something they could hold, something undeniable. One of the key windows in this case was the 6-hour block on July 3rd. During this time, Crystal stopped messaging friends. Brooks' phone activity dropped off. No one saw either of them in public. His vehicle's GPS data was incomplete. Investigators believed something happened during that window. That's when Crystal died. That's when plans were made. That's when a body was hidden. But how? And where? And was Brooks the only one involved? Or did someone help clean it up? Let's revisit Brooks' brother, Nick. He was a cop. He knew the law. He had tools. He had access. And he had loyalty. He warned Brooks during the investigation. He allegedly destroyed texts. He refused to cooperate. And his service weapon, his Glock, went missing shortly after Crystal vanished. Coincidence? Investigators didn't think so. Some even speculated Nick might have helped with the cleanup. But with no body, no weapon, and no confession, nothing could be proven. He lost his badge, but not his freedom. In 2022, rumors swirled online about drone surveillance footage captured over the Houck farm around the time of the disappearance. It wasn't officially confirmed, but internet sleuths analyzed satellite data, aerial maps, and timestamps. They claimed there was a burn pile visible in drone images. Some claimed they saw disturbed soil, the kind you'd see after digging. But all of this was circumstantial, speculative. Yet the possibility that Brooks may have burned evidence added a horrifying layer to this story. Was Crystal buried? Burned? Both? Was that why no trace was ever found? At least twice since 2016, remains have been found in Kentucky that were thought to be connected to Crystal. One set was discovered near the Nelson County line, another near an old barn. In both cases, DNA testing confirmed, not Crystal. False hope. Twice. Each time, the Ballard family was told to brace for news. Each time, their heartbreak restarted. Time doesn't kill a secret. It only gives it deeper roots. For 8 long years, Crystal Rogers was missing. Her family waited. Investigators searched. The public whispered. But behind closed doors, the FBI wasn't sitting still. They were watching, listening, collecting. And in 2023, everything started to change. Because the case that had gone cold was about to explode. It happened early. A quiet morning in September 2023. Federal agents pulled up to a home in Nelson County. Not just any home, Brooks House. After nearly a decade of suspicion, whispers, and side eyes, he was finally under arrest, charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence in connection to Crystal Rogers' disappearance. The silence was over. The man who said, "I have nothing to hide," was now at the center of a criminal case, and the public was stunned. Behind the scenes, the pieces had been building. A grand jury had quietly convened. Witnesses were called. Documents were reviewed. Forensics reevaluated. What came out of that courtroom was sealed. But one thing was clear. They had enough evidence to indict. Enough to say, Crystal Rogers didn't just disappear. She was murdered. And the person responsible had been close to her all along. The language in the federal arrest warrant was cold, precise, but devastating. It described how Brooks acted with intent, how he lied, how he tried to cover up a crime. It laid out how Crystal's disappearance wasn't a mystery, but a murder, and it wasn't random. It was personal. The motive? Likely tied to custody, control, and conflict in their relationship. He wanted her gone, and made it happen. But the one thing he couldn't erase was the people who loved her. So what finally cracked the case? What did the FBI uncover between 2015 and 2023? Sources close to the case say several key breakthroughs helped. Forensic retesting of materials found during the 2020 farm excavation. Cell phone triangulation data from the night Crystal vanished. Witnesses who previously stayed silent, now willing to talk. And possibly DNA evidence. The exact contents remain sealed, but multiple insiders suggest that a new piece of physical evidence, found on or near the Houck property, linked Brooks directly to the crime. Something he couldn't explain, something even a lawyer couldn't spin. One of the most serious charges leveled at Brooks was tampering. It meant the FBI believed he didn't just kill Crystal, he actively hid the crime. Whether that was through disposing of the body, destroying a phone, or altering a scene, signaled intent and guilt, because people who tamper aren't innocent. They're hiding something. While the FBI built their case, Crystal's mother, Sherry Ballard, never stopped fighting. She attended every court hearing, posted flyers, gave interviews, hugged strangers, lit candles on Crystal's birthday. But most importantly, she raised Crystal's 5 children, including the son Crystal shared with Brooks. That child, now a teenager, was caught in the center of a storm. A father accused, a mother missing, and a grandmother trying to protect him from a truth that was both impossible to ignore and too painful to fully face. This wasn't just a state investigation anymore. In 2020, the FBI took full control of the case. And with them came federal prosecutors, surveillance teams, forensic specialists, data analysts, and the latest in DNA technology. They re-examined everything, from Crystal's phone to the vehicles involved. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.